Shalom, brothers. Shalom. Once again, back with another impromptu video. Apostle Rakah. Start by saying all praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. All praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. All praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. For what Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. I'm going to get right to the point on this. The title of this video, excuse me, that I put up there is this man is surely going to pay for what he did to us. Okay, and this man, you already know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this devil, Esau, man, the Edomite, so-called Europeans, these Edomites, man. They don't pay. So they did all this wickedness, man. See, that like they conquered all the so-called dark nations of the earth, even going back to the time of the Greeks, and we were set up because Esau, when Yahweh Shai come back and take down these devils, they're not going to have no excuses because they had their time to rule. They had their time to conquer the whole earth. They had their time to do what they needed to do, enslave the Israelites, who were the Lord's chosen people, and the other so-called dark nations, right? They had their way with our women. They weaponized our women against us, right? They got the fatness of the earth. You know, you look at these, you look on TV. I remember back when I was a young child, or a young man, a young boy, even going into my teenage years, back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, when I was like a young adolescent and coming into my teenage years, back in the mid 80s, they had a show on TV with this guy. He was a so-called British Edomite, Robin Leach. And a lot of you brothers that's around my age range will remember this show. They had a show called The Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And this Edomite, British, Englishman, Robin Leach. I believe that was his name. This was Robin Leach, and welcome to the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And that show go back to like the mid 80s, I believe. I believe it was like going all the way back to like 1986, 87, from the mid to the late 80s. That like the mid to late 80s, that was like a big show on TV. If you were around during that time, you know what I'm talking about. And they pretty much just showed, there was Esau just showcasing different remote, exotic parts of the world where they had their mansions and where they, it was just showing you how these Edomites lived. And this guy, Robin Leach, the British Edomite, he was the host of the show. So he would travel the world to these different exotic locations where these different rich Edomites had their homes and living up in a waterfall, or a mansion on top of a waterfall, an exotic, beautiful place, in their mansion in the desert or wherever, mansion up in the mountains, and the extravagant lifestyles that they were living. That's Esau. So he was given the fatness of the earth, like the scripture said. So he had his time to rule, but it was only for a short time. See? So these devils, they ruled everything. They conquered over there in the Middle East. They conquered in so-called Europe, because we say so-called Europeans, but realistically, the original Europeans were Israelites anyway, or people of color. Because the original British really goes back, British, man of the covenant, who's the man of the covenant? The Israelites. So the original English, the Anglo-Saxon angel sons of Isaac are Israelites. Okay? So realistically, like them stories like Robin Hood, they say Robin Hood wasn't really a real character. It was based on folk tales and stuff. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table wasn't really, but those stories were based on real people. Okay? You see what I'm saying? But anyways, if they, realistically, Robin Hood, if there really was a Robin Hood, he was supposed to be a black man. Him and his merry men, even the wicked King Prince John and the Sheriff of Nottingham, they were all so-called black people, Israelites. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, if they were actual real characters, they would have been Israelites. They would have been black men. You see? The Crusades, those so-called the knights in shining armor, the so-called medieval times, the Dark Ages, those were all Israelites that was living back then. Okay? You see what I'm saying? But what? Esau came into power and they took down Jake, and it was by way of that the Black Death or the Black Plague, which weakened Jake, and that's how Esau was able to get up in there. Also, too, by way of intermarriage and all that, because the so-called black woman, just like now, they were doing it back then. They were marrying into these Edomites, or these Edomites were marrying into Jake families, and they came into power, and then it all culminated in the 1400s, the mid 1400s. So Esau came into power, which was prophecy, and they overtook the so-called black people in Europe, and they took down Jake in Europe and other parts of the world, Spain, Europe, France, okay? And then once the Edomites got a foothold and took down Europe, what did they do? They got on boats, and because they knew the scriptures, they knew about the other tribes, the northern kingdom, they knew that we were over here. Gad, Reuben, Ephraim, Issachar, and they came over here on those boats, right? And then once these Edomites, okay, got over here, they embarked on a campaign of manifest destiny, right? Meaning they knew it was their time to rule and take us down. So what they do, they stole our land. Starting from here, starting from the so-called Caribbean, the East Coast to the West Coast, and then them so-called Edomite Spaniards came up from the South and the West, and they just totally took over the whole land. All the so-called Americas, what we know today as the Americas, Canada, so-called North America, South, Central America, the Caribbean. See? And they stole it, and they did it on a campaign of rape, murder, robbery, thievery. And they did it. And the Lord allowed them to do it because when you read in Genesis 49, it says what? Gad, a troop shall overtake him, but he shall overcome at the last. So it was the prophecy that they were going to overtake us, which means steal our land, take us down, put us in captivity. So here it is today, us, which really it applies to all the Israelites, right? But me, I'm from the northern kingdom. I'm from the tribe of Reuben. Here in America, I would be classified as a so-called indigenous Native American person. I'm from the tribe of Reuben. I'm a so-called Seminole Indian from Florida. I'm from the Seminole tribe of Florida. Okay, and I was raised up in Florida around my so-called Native American traditional ways. But me being a so-called indigenous man, along with other folks, here it is. I have to submit to the damn devil, the Edomite man's laws, right? I gotta pay my bills. I gotta pay taxes. I gotta submit to whatever. I gotta have a driver's license, right? See what I'm saying? I gotta ask for permission to move around from Esau. So that's a part of the curse. That was the prophecy, right? So here it is, us being so-called indigenous people, myself and other members of my tribe, we got to submit to this devil, to Esau. We got to answer to him because we're slaves, man. That was a part of the prophecy in Genesis, the 49th chapter. So I'm going to start off reading this. I'm just going to read a couple of scriptures real quick just to make the point, man. Okay, this is the book of Proverbs 23 and 10. See, Esau, this man is going to pay for that, though. See, they think they're just going to do that, what they did to us, and they just going to get away with it. They're going to ride off into the sunset. Like you got GOCC talking about, some Edomites are going to be saved. No, it ain't no Edomites going to be saved. They're going to be saved for slavery, pursuing to Revelations 13, 9, and 10. Pursuing to Revelation 18 and 4. Okay, but I'm going to start right here in the book of Proverbs, the 23rd chapter, and we're going to go to the 10th verse. Okay, this is for you, Esau, and all you Edomites. Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. And that's what you devils did. You removed the landmark. The old landmark, meaning this was our land, and it's documented. You can go on YouTube and pull up the documentaries on how the West was lost, how so-called, how the Edomite man, Esau, these so-called Europeans, these Caucasians, came and conquered our land and murdered our elders and our chiefs and our women and our children. They removed our landmark. Andrew Jackson, the Trail of Tears. And I was just at the Trail of Tears a couple of months ago, a part in Little Rock, Arkansas. I did a video on it. That was an area where they made our people from the southeast, what they call the five civilized tribes, which my tribe was one of them, the Seminole, Choctaw, Cherokee, Chickasaw Creek. And they made us walk from the Carolinas, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama. They made us walk in the wintertime from there all the way out to Oklahoma. So they removed our landmark because it was called Andrew Jackson, the Indian Removal Act of the 1830s, I believe. See what I mean? So they did that, and they murdered them because the warriors would go out to fight. They would murder the warriors, and then they would come into the villages where it was just women and children and take them captive or murder them. You see? So that's what the scripture says. Remove not, this is Proverbs 23:10, remove not the old landmark. You see? So Esau did that. They removed the old landmark. Okay? They did that. So you're going to tell me that these devils are not going to pay? Okay? All right, bear with me 1 second. Okay. Okay, hold on 1 second. Shall they not take up a parable against thee? Okay, this is Habakkuk. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to the book of Habakkuk. Okay, yeah. I'm going to jump over to, I had another one lined up. I think no. I'm going to hold off on Habakkuk. No, I'm going to read, okay. That was Proverbs. So now I'm going to jump over to Proverbs 26 and 27. Before I go to Habakkuk, I'm going to read Proverbs 26. This is the book of Proverbs 26 and 27. Okay. Okay. Whoso diggeth a pit, okay, shall fall therein. And he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. So did not Esau do that? Whoso diggeth, what was the pit? The pit he dug for us was slavery, captivity, stealing our land, stealing our nationality. So that was a stone of wickedness that Esau rolled on us to destroy us. Now, if you take a stone and roll a stone off a cliff onto some people that's down below, that stone is going to fall and crush those people. So all the wickedness that Esau did, that's why Revelations 18:4, it says what? Reward her even as she rewarded you. So all the wickedness you did, taking our women, putting us in captivity, degrading us, belittling us, humiliating us, that's all going to happen to you Edomites, man. The Lord is going to raise us up to do the same thing to you. So this links up with Revelations 18:4. The stone, that stone of wickedness that you rolled, but in our hand it's going to be righteous. It's going to fall upon you. So all the wickedness that you devils did to our people, whether it be the so-called Native American people, whether it be the so-called Negroes, you brought them in slavery over here from the west coast of Africa and Europe. You did everything you could do. You weaponized their women against them, right? You weaponized all of our women against us. So all that wickedness that you devils did, it's going to all come upon you. Okay? Okay? It's going to fall upon you. So everything you devils did is going to come upon you devils. Y'all going to feel everything that we felt, but worse. Okay? Now, excuse me, we're back in the book of Habakkuk. The book of Habakkuk 2:12. Okay? Earlier I read Habakkuk 2:2. Right? That was what I read earlier, the book of Habakkuk, the second chapter and the second verse. But now I'm back in Habakkuk, the second chapter again, and this is going to be Habakkuk 2:12. I'm going to read this. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish a city by iniquity. Now, we know in the Bible the word woe means destruction. So I'm going to read it again, but I'm going to read it with the right word there, because woe represents destruction. Destruction to him that buildeth a town with blood. How did you devils get America? All right, I went into that just a couple of moments ago. You came over here from the minute you devils arrived here on this land. going back to the Spanish, Hernando Cortez, Ponce de Leon, coming up from Florida and the South. You devils up here in Plymouth, Massachusetts, the Pilgrims. The minute you got here, you embarked on a campaign of murder against the so-called indigenous people of this land, the American Indian people, which were the tribes of Gad and Reuben and Ephraim and Issachar, right? You started murdering our people after we showed you how to survive and took care of you, right? Put us in captivity, and you established Plymouth, Massachusetts. You established your towns, right? And you did it by blood. You had to murder us because our chiefs and warriors wasn't having it at first. So they tried to fight against you, but you had them superior weapons and you murdered us. And that's how you set up your towns, and y'all just kept moving further inland. So woe unto you. So destruction unto you, devils. You're going to pay for that, right? By iniquity, right? With blood. That's how you would. So America was established. Your American government talking about truth, justice, and the American way. When you devils are murderers, you still murdering people. And establish a city by iniquity. So all your cities from New York to Los Angeles, in Canada as well, Toronto, Quebec, Ontario, they were all established by iniquity, right? Puerto Rico, okay, Mexico City, all the Americas, Rio de Janeiro, there was all native people all throughout this land. So you devils, and it was who? You Edomites that did it. Whether you call yourself British, whether you call yourself French, whether you call yourself Spanish, whether you call yourself Portuguese, Dutch, you are all Edomites that came and did that. So you all going to pay collectively, man. According to the scripture, it says it. Woe to him that buildeth a town by blood. So you got to pay. And this is a living monument. That's why Yahweh Shah said he going to come. He going to catch you red-handed. You got the people of the Lord here. You got us on reservations living in third world condition lifestyles. You got the so-called Negroes and Hispanics and the other tribes in the ghetto living screwed up, right? So you devils, you caught red-handed. You're going to be destroyed for what you did to all of us, all the tribes, you see? But the thing with the so-called Native American thing, that's something that y'all can't, even the other nations speak on that. You got these other nations, the Gawarium, yeah, what you did to the Native Americans in America, you Caucasians, you can't get around that. So Esau, y'all gonna pay. If you don't believe me, read Revelations 13, 9 and 10, read Revelations 18 and 4. Okay? Those are scriptures to back this up. So this man is gonna pay, brothers. Esau ain't getting, don't listen to GOCC, don't listen to these dumb, stupid Christians. God love everybody, you know. No, Esau is going to pay. If you're an Edomite, you're going to pay. All right? But with that, I pray that this video is edifying. I made the point I wanted to make. And I say shalom to Wabla Allah.